I'm here today with the lovely Liv, one of my dear friends. She's a psychologist, someone who aims to bridge the gap between the spiritual realm and the material world, also known as the Western culture and Eastern culture, through philosophy and psychology. And so we're here to discuss exactly that, the practical tools and how to actually link those two sides of psychology together. So I guess, do you want to tell the audience a bit more about what you do? So your background in psychology, your history with and experience with Eastern philosophy, and Eastern practices like meditation and Kundalini yoga. And then also maybe tell them like who exactly your clientele is, like who are you helping. And so if that resonates with certain people in the audience, they might actually, be able to seek you out.
Yeah, of course. So my background in psychology started when I left high school, jumped straight into university and studied 7 years straight, really knowing that I wanted to serve and help people in this way. But I've always been so passionate about understanding human behavior, understanding how to really tap into our limitless possibility and potential. So that led me on a journey, initially wanting to do sports psychology, got to third year undergrad and did an elective on organizational psychology. So that was it for me. I got into honours, studied my butt off, really dedicated so much of my life to then also get into my master's straight after of organizational psychology. And essentially being in that space after I finished 2 years of masters, I went into corporate as a consultant psychologist working in mental health and well-being. So part of organizational psychology is working with teams, looking at the strategy, which I really love, and from the top looking down through the layers of a business and seeing what's working, what's not, psychological safety, risks. And that was a big eye-opener to realize that a lot of us don't have the skills or awareness to hold space, I say, but mental health skills and awareness. So that's still a big passion of mine. However, I quickly learned corporate, the space wasn't for me. The full-time gig, I burnt out quite quickly. Even though I practice my meditation every morning and exercise and ate well. And it was a big eye-opener in that way to how I work, and I need freedom, autonomy, because I'm very creative. So I need a lot of rest for that. Yeah. So after leaving that and learning so much and also working in leadership development, so working with leaders and more in the background for that space, I quit, didn't know what I was doing. I just needed a break. And then my business awakened, my body spirit just dropped in. And from there, I moved into the clinical and private setting, working with pediatricians, specifically children and teens. So from 6 years of age to about 18. And I did a lot around ADHD, autism diagnoses, and quickly learnt the medical Western side in that space, which, I really saw the gap there in terms of Eastern philosophy being missed and the value that it provides, particularly with medication and how doctors are trained to provide that as an intervention. However, not seeing long-lasting results and seeing a lot of symptoms and side effects from kids taking medication and them not eating enough or their moods. So from there, I really wanted to jump into my own thing officially. So this year I started fully on my own and have been working with children from the age of 6, teenagers and adults as well. So I work with a lot of parents, and the challenges that my clients come with all vary. But what I love about being an integrative psychologist is being able to play with so much in the healing process, because I believe the healing process involves looking at the mind, the body, and the spirit. We're not separate from those things, and traditional psychology has typically looked at the psychology, the mind, where now it's moving more into psychotherapy techniques, which is linked with somatic psychology, so looking into the body and chronic pain and moving through emotions within the body to help heal and grow and tap into that limitless possibility and potential.
Yeah, that's pretty well eloquently put, and I love that too. But to add to that, right, like I went and studied health science. I also wanted to study sports psychology, advanced sports psychology. So I did a couple of units in that. And one of I'd say an error, but to define error, I mean, the root word of error means to wander off the path. So not to make a mistake, but to come back to your line, right? So I realized that an error I had made when I was younger was actually not pursuing psychology or philosophy and pursuing sports science, because I was athletic at the time, and that's where I got the social affirmation. But something I also noticed was that the word psychology, psyche means soul, and but psychology is the study of the mind. So there's a misinterpretation or misconception of the actual word itself, and so it's kind of like diluted in some sense. And so we're actually not in Western culture. Not to say that we don't have elements that are practical and useful in today's society, but we don't fully understand how psychology, as in terms of the psyche, is a holistic point of view, a holistic medicine, I say. So what I'm curious about, though, as well, is you said like you noticed in the Western culture, so organizational psychology and workplaces, there was something missing. So what do you think was missing, and how does Eastern philosophy and your study within that actually fill that gap?
Yeah, really cool question and reflection as well. Also love the meaning of psychology. Dropping
you heard that before?
That wisdom. Yeah, you mentioned it, but just hearing that again is like, ooh, it hits the soul. So what I noticed, the gap, how to put this into words, 1 second. The first thing that comes to me is presence, our ability to be here. And when I say to be here, I mean with all of your senses, nose, eyes, taste, ears, touch, and heart. I say there's 6 senses.
Okay, that's the 6th.
Yeah. And to really absorb all the details in your environment and make those small moments, as we call it, big moments, because all the small moments add to big moments. And thinking where you are now, whoever's listening, where you are has come from a lot of small moments put together. So realizing that has been lost in our Western modern world has been confronting. I've moved through that, of course, but realizing the modern society of the pace and the doing and the masculine of getting things done has been overridden or really celebrated more than the rest, than the creativity, than the beingness of the feminine side, which is the presence. So within my work as a consultant, that pace was quite intense for me at times, particularly because there was no rest in between. So I'd finish a massive project and then be expected to just jump straight on another one, and 2 days on a weekend was apparently the rest. But, you know, I have grocery shopping, I have to clean the house, and I have a partner, I have family, I'm a sister, I'm a best friend. I also have a life. So
That's your best friend?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the collaborative creative partner?
Yeah. Collaborative creative partner, as Anthony says. So that was really hard to just switch off and rest. And as humans, we need time after exerting so much. So the fact that that was missed was really hard for me to keep up with, and so much of my team burnt out so quickly as well. But, you know, people just push on. And I was never okay with that, because that's where illnesses come from, inflammation in the body.
So like stress?
Yeah, stress.
Yeah.
So stress, we just throw that word around, or, you know, I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, and here and there, that's totally okay. We need a bit of stress. That's called eustress, which a little bit of stress is good for our growth. So, like, to get out of bed, we need a little stress in our body for us to get out of bed, and exercising is part of producing that eustress. However, in terms of working constantly and not resting enough to counteract to rest, like rejuvenate, that's where disease really comes from, because we're out of balance. So back to being in the do mode, essentially we need to stay as best as we can in balance and harmony from my view and my experience in life. So back to the workplace, that was definitely not seen, and I didn't want any more to do with that, because my relationships were suffering with myself firstly, and then with those I love. I just wasn't present in my life, and I was getting sick often, like constant colds. And all of a sudden I realized I don't want to live like this and follow the norm of climbing a ladder to get X amount each year, while helping, of course, but I still have my goals and desires as a human, because I'm a human too. So then working with pediatricians as a contractor, seeing the gap too of turning patients in and out, like coming in next and really filling the books. And I know that demand is there. However, it felt the humanness wasn't there in the way of service, specifically where I was. And the quick fix is what really disrupted me in the Western world, is people really wanting the Band-Aid solution and thinking popping a pill will just solve a problem. And I'm getting goosebumps now from a young age, there's always underlying meanings, and I'm on a quest, and with my business, Awaken My Body Spirit, it's all about coming to the fire, not treating the smoke only, which are the symptoms. So a lot of us just look at the symptoms and want to get rid of those, but where's the fire coming from? How can we find the fire to heal it all together? And with that mission that I'm on, I've learned incorporating Eastern philosophy has been so beautiful to blend in terms of coming back to presence, coming back to the here and now through tools such as we say mindfulness, meditation. But even with that, there's so much stigma around that, so there's room to unpack what that can look like for people, and really stripping back. It's making things more simple than what they seem. Yeah. Did I answer that?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I felt quite the same way with my work. I used to work at Telstra. I've had a couple of different jobs, actually, and I was always trying to assimilate into those, but I just felt like a pretty strong pull more towards Eastern philosophy too, and having that freedom to connect with spirit as well. And so there's a certain way of doing business, not just the quick fix, like all those things you mentioned, they're ignorant of spirit. And by ignorant, I mean they're just unaware of. And how I actually look at the world, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, so west and east, right? I also look at it in terms fractal. So as the mind, the brain. So we have like, this is a very general concept, but it's like you have the left, you have logical, you have right, which is feminine, you have masculine, feminine. So you could look at Western culture as masculine, Eastern culture as feminine. Something that I learned that you might be aware of as well was like if you have left hemispheric damage in a right hemisphere, you can still function. You can control both sides of the body. If you damage the right hemisphere, meaning you only have a left, you only can recognize one side of the body. And another interesting thing that I was looking into was like, well, masculine is defined by straight lines. So when you look at a male, straight jaw, broad shoulders, like an attractive male has strong lines, essentially. And a square is a very masculine shape, right? And I also feel like Western culture is quite square. But, and then feminine is about curves. So what's attractive in a female is curved lines, a curved body. There's an elegance to that. And also, in terms of the psychology behind Western, so let's talk about Christianity and Judaism, right? It's linear. So it's also the philosophy is linear too. And then in Eastern culture, the philosophy is circular in terms of there's actually reincarnation. So it's funny how like actual shapes can play into the psychology of what we think and what we perceive. And a circle goes full circle. So it sees everything. It has a 360 view where a straight line is 180 degrees. It's only half. So my theory is that it's not that the masculine is wrong, and it's not that it should be unseen or dismissed. It's that by taking a feminine foundational point of view, that you get a holistic service, a holistic way of being, as opposed to half of being. So the feminine can see both. It understands both. Where the masculine only sees the masculine because it's so focused on its task. It's very goal-orientated. And I think that's what's showing up in culture too. So for me, story is what you mentioned, how like they're like single events split through time. And story, every story, actually to tell a good story, it comes full circle. There's a beginning place of the story, and then there's like a transformation, and then you end up back in the same place, but you end up back in the same place transformed. So you go full circle. And so when I look at my life as well, I view it in a spiral or circular pattern. So there's certain patterns that are reoccurring in my life. There's a certain narrative, there's a certain theme, but everything's connected through this narrative and storyline. And so I'm wondering, like, what's your actual belief around your own philosophy that you've cultivated through life? You're taking on Christian beliefs, you're taking on now Buddhist, you're taking on Hindu, like with the combination of, are you creating your own? And how do you think we can also, because my belief is that if we create our own narrative and our own structures, we understand how stories work and we have the tools to create this, we think we can then create something of meaning that we all have shared values from. And for me, that's love. I think love is at the centerpiece of that. And so as you said, the heart as the sixth sense, it's actually nonsense as well. It doesn't make any sense. So love makes no fucking sense. It actually doesn't. You don't know why you do things like that you love. You just do it because you love it. So it actually is nonsense. It doesn't. That is your sixth sense. So I want to, I guess, unpack like what belief have you been cultivating this entire time? Because I feel like there's been something that you've been working on, being a psychologist and diving into these things and being so open and curious. So yeah.
Yeah, again, hitting me with just viable questions. I love it. Thank you.
It's all good.
By the way, I love juicy questions. It just gets me so excited. I'm like, yes. I bet you're the same, yeah?
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for you to. And this is you're being interviewed here though, so I have to contain my desire to go on tangents.
Oh no, we don't need to contain.
Okay.
We can draw some lines. I'll jump in. So you mentioned seeing me on a mission and my vision as to what I'm doing and what's really connected me. Was that?
Yeah, I'd say more your philosophies. What's your understanding of yourself? Who do you believe you are? How has your I guess, the belief system that you grew up with molded and changed whilst diving into Eastern philosophy. Like, how are you combining these two paradoxical narratives to formulate your own narrative, if you are formulating your own narrative, which I believe everyone is in some way? And then how does that shape who you are and what you do for work?
Okay, let's start with the first one. Might have to ask you again. We'll see how we go. Yeah. So my own belief system. As you beautifully said, we're constantly evolving, and with the circle and the spiral, we constantly spiral. So we're on a journey that, we set certain goals or certain aspirations, and then we achieve them, and then we set more. So at the base of our evolution, I really believe, from an equal view, so if we all zoom out for a second, it's elevating consciousness on the planet. Consciousness being energy, being what's not seen to the physical eye of the human body, but what's felt. It's noticing the subtleties in the day-to-day, and that comes back to the power of presence, to be able to notice those subtleties, which is the beauty in the world. So the way from when I was young, as a kid, and all beautiful kids, I love kids so much in general, and working with kids because they bring such innocence, and they're such incredible teachers for adults who have lost their way in terms of the play in life and the beauty in life, because kids are just so open and clear and, wow, look at that butterfly, or look at this beautiful bird, or look at this flower, and they stop and they pick it up. They're not racing from A to B. And of course, when we're adults, we aspire to achieve things and build things, and I really love that part of us being a human and seeing people who are really dedicated to that. So children are our greatest teachers because of the way they see the world. So their innocence, their playfulness, their purity of just really being open and caught and excited about such, as adults, some may see it as small things, but really significant things that, coming back to when I was a kid, I was obviously the same, and keeping that essence throughout my teenage years. I'd like to say that I have been able to keep that. However, at times it was lost. And when I say keep that, in terms of stripping back. So part of my belief in integrating the left and right brain and Eastern and Western philosophy is a constant cycle of learning, absorbing, exploring yourself, exploring the world, and then emptying, a dying, like a death, and a rebirthing. And that's the circle and the cycle of life. So throughout my journey, connecting back to land, back to earth, nature, has been such a gift to drop more into my feminine, to drop more into my right brain, and drop out of the norm of that constant doing that I mentioned earlier, and connecting back to our ancestors and how they lived in such, more simple ways with a lot less than what we have now. And by honouring those traditions very simply, I'm not saying I do massive rituals and ceremonies every day. It's even a recognition of sitting on the grass and looking at the trees and saying hi to the trees, which I do often, and the birds, knowing that they're living as well and they're not separate from me. So I guess to try to put that all together with the belief from an eagle view is everything's connected, nothing is separate. So mind, body, spirit, if there's something happening in the body, then that's also linked to the spiritual realm as well. And zooming out even more, we're here to elevate consciousness, in my opinion. To elevate, to evolve, personal evolution, good podcast fan, to evolve ourselves, and by evolving ourselves, we evolve our collective, we evolve our society, and then that flows, feels better than flood, to our generations to come. So pausing on that, it's, coming back to really simple principles as to why we're here, which we often forget, right? It's like we can get so caught up in, I've got to achieve this and do this and buy this house and get married and have a child, but if we just take a second and breathe and realize we're also an animal, Homo sapien, just like a bird, just more advanced.
Sound quite Aussie there.
Just like a bird. We are, and if we remember that in our day-to-day, it's actually we can be so hard on ourselves, and obviously that comes from other conditioning, which I've noticed growing up, which can be a strength. But without going down that path, it's back to the present, it's back to stripping it, making it simple, and following your heart in terms of moving forward in life. But with the belief, it's faith. So faith in the cycles, faith in Mother Earth and how she constantly provides for us. We have endless amounts of food where we are in Australia, with such gratitude for that, also knowing not everyone has that, which is another topic on collective trauma. We can do another episode on that. I've been following Thomas Hubel for a few years, and he's expanded my mind.
I haven't done much of him. I've done a lot of Gabor Mate sort of stuff, and Jung, obviously, but not so much familiar with Thomas.
Yeah, well, let's park that.
Okay.
Well, we can dive into now.
No, it's cool.
So with the belief that we are nature ourselves, it's not go out and sit in nature, like realizing you are nature. Again, you're an organism. You're not separate from the earth. You've come from the earth, evolved. Living in that way has really helped me, and I catch myself still because I'm human, and that energy of the rat race and the mind, the ego wanting, the desire has swept me at times. However, now I feel I'm at a place where I have my tools and they're constantly growing. There's never an end point of, I'm done, cool. Because naturally, as the earth grows and a seed sprouts into a flower and then that dies, goes back to the earth to nurture the earth with minerals. That cycle, we too are the same. So we're designed to constantly evolve back to our higher purpose of evolving. So even if someone tried to just live in Mexico by the beach and do nothing and retire at 20 years old, they would get bored. They'd want to figure something else out to do. And I really believe that. So back to the belief in the higher purpose, flowing with it, trusting in the cycles, trusting in the seasons. Every season has the energy, but learning that, because that has been missed in the Western philosophy, and that's what Eastern philosophy also beautifully brings. In terms of the different areas of life.
Yeah, no, well put. There's a lot to uncover there, and a few things I want to dive into is a little later on is the actual tools that you use. So the audience can walk away with what's some practical things I can do to incorporate more of these Eastern traditions and their practices. But I wanted to go on a bit of a journey here with you. You said cycles. I completely agree. So again, circular pattern, and things come and go. The death and rebirth, but also the 4 seasons. And so something that I love it. Look, it's in Western culture too. I just think we've kind of forgotten it as well. And it's living with the seasons. So there's a time to harvest food. There's a time to be more active. There's a time to be more at rest. So like the 9 to 5 or our style of living isn't actually adapted to seasons. It's adapted to an economical sort of calendar, right? So it's about the financial season. So I think it's about shifting our calendar and shifting it back to something a bit more primal. And I think that could actually help society in that way. So for example, like when the sun heats up the body, when anything heats up, it expands. So you expand more energy, you exert more energy, you consume more energy too when you're in summer because there's more fruit available. And in winter, when you freeze things, they condense, and so you keep a bit more quiet, you keep more still. And so that's why I feel like there are tools and techniques to do in certain seasons. And if you can sync your routine with that, so, maybe I'll journal more and so something that I do with my clients is like, we'll think about the season that we're in. So if it's autumn, let's write a bit more. Let's let things go. Let's look at last year and how can we change these things? And then what do we want to cultivate for springtime? What can we plant now so we can grow these seeds in spring? And this could be habits, these are metaphorical things, right? And then in summer, how do we action these things, So it's actually getting in tune with this. And so you keep this sort of momentum going and this motivation going. So that's something practically that I instill within myself and clients. So I love the fact that you brought that up. Also, you can zoom out massively here in terms of like, okay, what constellation are we in? Like, that freaking fascinates me. Like, like we had a lot of like societies tracking the stars and stuff like that. And like, we're in the age of Aquarius now. And, so that for me as well was it's a massive shift because what we're tracking is, I think like, it's a very similar thing to the markets. So the markets track like the emotional state of the global of the world, right? So it's like we price things in anticipation of an event happening. So we're always anticipating what's going to happen, and so the market reflects our psychology. And so people that are really good in investing, they will look at human psychology and how that plays out. But that's it's a small calendar. But if you look at this over I think it's like it's like 3,000 years that we go through every different constellation, something like that, 2,600 I think it is. And each one of those comes with a different narrative and a different story. So we move from an air element, we move to an earth element, then to a fire, and to water. And so we've shifted, if people don't know this, we've shifted into a time of air, which is about creativity, it's about innovation, it's about freedom. And what I find really funny is that, one, you're starting a business about freedom, and myself included. But also decentralization, so like that's what cryptocurrency is about, by the way. So like that's how I bring in spirituality with actual what's happening in technology, So I think there is a misconception too that the spiritual path is just completely ignorant of work and your desire, right? I think there's actually a way of combining these two things together, which is marrying and bridging the Eastern and Western philosophy, and the masculine and the feminine. And coming back to children and play, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Like when I think about spirit, I think it's so playful, like it's my little kid coming out and it's fun. And, but also the word play, has this different element to it, right? And I think we forget that life is a game, that life is playful at heart. And that's what you're born with as a child. And we lose that. So it's coming back into that. So through my journey with spirituality, it's like I guess I got to a point where it's like, there is nothing necessarily to do. There is no set inherent meaning, right? But that gives it all the meaning in the world because you can create that, which is pure love and unconditional love and freedom, right? If I tell you, hey, like live your own life and be you, that's complete letting go. That's complete love and freedom at the same time. So I haven't given you a certain purpose. You get to create that yourself. And so I feel like consciousness has given that gift to us in return. It's like, you know what? There is no defined meaning, but the fact that you get to create it means it makes it way more meaningful, because it allows you to be and express your true self. Because if there was a set purpose and set direction, set goal for life, then only certain people would actually be happy and have a meaningful life. So it has to be that way. It has to have that sort of foundation with it. And I think a lot of people get stuck in Western culture at, oh, life has no meaning, and they just end the thought process there. It's like, well, why would it be that way? Why would it have no meaning? So it's a gift, so it's unconditional love, as any parent would give you, any mother, and so once you understand that, it's like, okay, well, now I can go to my 9-to-5 job. I can start a business, because you know why? Not because of some serious thing that I want to do, but because I simply want to play. I want to play this game, and I want to, if I tap into that element of spirit, and I can add that to my work and add that to my vocation. It's not even work anymore; it becomes vocation, which is like love. Then how crazy is that? Like, I get to build technology, get to fly rocket ships out to space, and it's like, okay, it's not spiritual, but it is spiritual, because that's what spiritual. That's for me anyway. It is. It's play. That's what spirituality is. It's that element of the inner child as well, and exploration and consciousness, seeking out self and exploring the universe, and that is exploring consciousness. It's like we're exploring ourselves, and you can do that through Western psychology, which is, I feel like, is coming back to the spiral. Spirals move two ways. It moves outwards, so a spiral is out, and when you look at those things that spin around, you see them all the time, like, what the fuck? It's moving in two directions. It's like, it is. It's like, that's life. It's a paradox. It's a complete paradox. So it's like, you can spiral out and move outwards and explore the world and be an adventurer. You can travel, or you can spiral inwards and you can go through the inward journey. And there is no right or wrong, but there is a overvalue of one and overvalue of another. So there is a middle path. There is the snake between the center point. So there is a way of living in balance between the yin and the yang and the center of that. So it's like, if you're going to explore the outside world, great. Well, have a great intention in mind that's inward. If you're going to explore the inward world, make sure you go out and contribute back to the outside world. And so that's kind of where I'm at with play. And everything. I can see you wanting to take the mic here.
Yeah, take the mic.
Yeah.
I love all that you've shared, particularly with the Kundalini and the balance between the left and the right, the masculine, the feminine, and the play, and even the explanation of spirit. That's so beautiful. We've got so much stigma in our society with those words like spirituality, mindfulness, meditation. People straight away, people straight away think, oh, headspace apps, and I've got to sit and do it a certain way. And what I've learned through leaders, I also follow like Deepak Chopra. The moment we make something a chore, we lose spirit, we lose play, we lose the essence. When you look at children, there's no chore involved. They're just free and wild. And we also know when you're so much in that space, nothing is really rooted and grounded into life. So too much of one side.
Well, I think that's becoming an adult. So becoming an adult is actually cultivating the inner child within your structured self. So it's the balance between the inner child and your adult self with the rules. And so it's very natural for us to take on the rules in society and conform, but it's also very natural of us to go back and rediscover the inner child. And that's the Garden of Eden for me. So a garden, right, is nature, but it's in a garden. So it's actually also structured. So it's not wild. It's not like a forest. It's completely different. A forest is completely, it's a spiritual place, right? It's completely, but a garden is way more spiritual because it's the balance between nature and man-made structure.
And even when we all sit with a garden, and what's required to maintain a garden is to water. It's caring, it's resting, it's letting it grow in its own good time. It's not forcing, which is such a low vibration that all of us can get sucked into. I've got so many ideas, I just need to make it happen now. That's a lower level of consciousness. The moment we can shift up to a level where life flows through me, and that's where spirit and faith and trust really enables people to take that leap from I've got to do it all myself, that will, that masculine, which is such a beautiful thing as well, being a human, and that primal, that from our ancestors, you know, they had to go hunt, otherwise they'd die. And now we have so much at our fingertips that we have so much opportunity and ability to not be in that space all the time, because that's where you drain yourself, to you lose your play and your inner child, and 3, become a robot and lack of meaning, really. That's what the world really needs more of. So back to the integration of the two. I had a really important thing I wanted to share with that. You asked me, that's what it is, thank you. You asked me what tools I use. So I'll jump into that. And a key one with integration of left and right, masculine, feminine, is embodiment. And that word you may have seen, heard, but embodiment for me, from my experience, is the word has body in it. It's got an I and a Y, but dropping into the body and really allowing yourself to understand who you are. So that inner journey has definitely been more of what I focus on, being an integrative psych, that's obvious. But the more I look inward in my heart and again strip away, become present and feel my body and feel this moment and how my body responds, that's learning our natural intuitive gifts. We all know that, you know, follow your gut, that saying that's thrown around, but really that's your sacral chakra. That's the womb for women, and that's the center for us all, regardless if you're male or female, that guides us and that connects with our heart. And hence why nutrition, if we're not eating good food, how the mind and gut affect one another from a really high level. So coming back to embodiment, really learning what works for you in terms of feeling centered. So that feeling of centeredness, that feeling of balance, that peace. It's not hard to know when you're in that. And maybe those who are listening haven't actually felt that for a while, and they might be like, oh, I don't know what that feels like. But using very simple tools like sitting by the beach, going for a walk, a 10-minute walk is shown to drop depression, anxiety symptoms, reduce them. Ocean swims, connecting back with nature, playing with a child, see how you feel after, to shift that state of go, go, go. So a key one for me has been meditation and that routine, the structure of every morning, but not letting it be a chore. So if I wake up and it feels like I'm forcing myself to sit, I'll let myself be and know I'll come back to it. Breath is another one, just spitballing here, which is in the moment, always check in with your breath. Deeper breaths, belly breaths, so many of my clients.
Inspiration. Yeah, I was saying the breath is inspiration, so in spirit. So breath actually means spirit, to inspire, to breathe. Yeah. So it is like the most simplest way, and probably the most powerful tool that we have at hand all the time. But yeah, I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah. So breath, which is within the body, movement, and presence, which is also in the body through that experience, is the foundation, I would say. So part of my business, mind represents presence as a pillar. So with coming back to my clients, I really zoom into where are they lacking presence, and a lot of the time it's in their life in all areas. I don't believe you can be only present. Oh, yeah, I believe you could be present in one area of your life and ignore the rest if we break up different areas like work, relationship, health, leisure. But what tools do my clients have to be able to check in with themselves in any moment? And with more presence, there's more resilience in life. It's bouncing back quicker because we know life will throw us challenges because we're here to grow. And we know when we're out of our comfort zone, we grow. When we're safe and do the same old thing, we don't grow. We actually become stagnant like a lake, not an ocean that constantly flows. So then also spirit in my business links to play and bringing back things that light you up with joy and things that really, truly matter to you. Because the more we do things that really we love, that is the compass. And you've mentioned to me podcasting is what lights you up, and I see it in your eyes. And when you talk about it, and that's that's your gift, one of the many. Body is tuning into the somatics, so the body healing. And coming back to having presence, it's one thing to say it, but embodiment is doing the work. And when I say doing the work, it's creating space to connect with yourself, to learn about yourself, to see in your day, which comes from simple reflection strategies. So I post fortnightly. Wednesday we write posts which is aimed to encourage more and more of us to make the space to reflect and answer 3 questions. But really, my honours thesis during my studies, I don't know if I told you, was on how self-reflection builds resilience.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which I knew then that there was a bigger purpose to being partnered with a beautiful academic who's done so much research in resilience, who's come from working in the army, specifically as a psychologist. But without going there, part of my thesis in my honours year was such an eye-opener because I've always been such a reflector. So then to put it to writing and the research behind writing it down on a piece of paper and how that helps you, one, process stressful events, adversity that you've been through, and 2, learn from it, because we don't often think back and think how we do things differently. I know you and I do, maybe a lot of the time, where we could probably, well, I could tone it down a bit. Thankfully for my fiance, he's a lot more laid back. It helps me just, all right, just let it be. I don't need to know why. Or I'm doing the best I can. Like, I'm very aware I don't need a nitpick, because there's that line too. But reflection has been such a core part of my inner journey, and writing and journaling, as we call it. But simple questions such as, particularly for those who are lacking, so I'm going really practical here, those who are lacking direction and are wanting to know more about what they're doing and getting a job or starting something that's going to serve them. I did this a few years ago, and it really helped me, from a coach that I listened to. 3 questions, one being in your journal at the end of every day, dedicating time, again, the masculine, ensuring that you are consistent and disciplined with it. First question, what drained me most today? Second, what energized me? And the third, what did I learn about myself? So doing that for 30 days, every day, consecutive. And then on the 30th day, going back through it all and looking at
the theme?
Yeah, the themes overall. And you see that the things that drain you, if it's constantly the same thing, then taking action. So this is where the integration of the feminine and the masculine is so beautiful, because you're creating that space, you're being with yourself, you're learning more about yourself through simple tools, through practice, through discipline, and then you're making a change. With spirituality, the stigma is people just meditate, and there are yogis that live in caves and meditate for all their lives, and that's part of their purpose. But for more modern people and contemporary, I say I'm a contemporary mystic, who's here to... Modern mystic, yeah, thank you. Who's here to be more practical and hands-on in the world in terms of serving, is downloading, being in my meditation and feeling through my body and in my day-to-day and what's lighting me up, what's not. Being curious, staying in that curiosity and noticing. That's such a key word, noticing for presence, which I didn't mention earlier. But noticing what's happening within you, and then when you come to your journaling practice, writing that down, exploring, with kindness, with love, not needing to know the answer, but, oh, okay, I noticed that I felt a bit tense around this person, or, oh, this sign popped up today. I saw this many numbers in a row, and making a note.
I know you love that.
Yeah, the numbers. And making a note to, have it there and learn about what's happening and how that's being led if you're curious about that. It doesn't mean you have to do that.
Yeah.
But coming back to direction, simple questions like those 3 and reflecting back is helpful for that. I feel like I've lost where I was going.
No, I got you
with
there.
that. There's just so much. We
There's
could
a lot.
just talk for hours.
We could talk for hours. I'm like, I actually got this massive question now, which I asked you in the beginning.
Yeah.
But
360.
Yeah, for 360,
time?
which was, I got time. I don't know if you have time.
Yeah.
Was the very first thing you said, right, was about the reason you went to Eastern philosophy and to marry this gap is because you want people to fulfill their greatest potential, right? So, and then I think that's what we're trying to get to. Is like, well, how do we actually fulfill our greatest potential? So you incorporate Eastern practices combined with the Western world. So it's having a goal, it's having a vision and a contribution to society. But then how do we actually tap into the potential? And potential for me is like, it's energy, right? How do I cultivate the most energy? So I'll answer my perspective on this, and I'll ask you the same thing. And I think you were alluding to that with love. I think love is that potential. So when you're in love with something, which also, I just love Alan Watts, by the way. He's phenomenal. So anyone listening and you want to I think go out and play, but go listen to Alan Watts and see how playful he is with his words and terminology and his philosophy. And he's simply just speaking for the pure enjoyment of it. And there's a lot to be learnt through him and through his words. But coming back to love, is like, if you can find what you love, then you'll be blessed with the energy and the tools and signs and synchronicities in the universe. Because what I believe that consciousness wants or desires, it desires your greatest potential, and so, but it also has its intention too. And so it's about aligning yourself with your higher self, which is the consciousness, which is the world. And so to fulfill your greatest potential is to align those two things together, and to discover what that is. So you might not know what that is right now. Like, it might take you a lifetime to that, but the pursuit of discovering what it is that you love, and then once you are acting in that place and you have so much joy out of that, you're simply just giving. And when you're giving, you're also equal exchange of energy, you're then receiving as much. And so there's something about that. And you might not be rich and successful in terms of having a whole lot of money, but I feel like a lot of people that I speak to that have a whole lot of money, they love working on their passion projects. They want to start and do something that they love. Why do you want the money? So you can actually do what you love. And so you could take that path and wait until you have a lot of money to do what you love, or you could just start doing what you love right now, and because that's what you want to do anyway. So, and Alan Watts will talk about that too. It's like, why spend so much time? Why spend so much time trying to get the money to do what you love by doing something you hate? The only way you can actually be successful is to do what you love, because you'll become the best at that because you love it. And so, exactly. So, that for me is how do I fulfill my potential? It's like, go out and find out what you love. And that for me has been the greatest tool. And so however that looks for you is going to be different to others. And so it might not be sitting on a bench and meditating. It might not be all these things, but it's just noticing, tapping into yourself, as you said, and where does that energy come from every day? And because you feel more energy when you're in love. And, it's a force, it's a uniting field. It's like, it's incredible. And then it's attraction, right? So the law of attraction, this manifesting thing it's just love. Really, it's just like, I just love this thing, therefore I want more of it. I desire more of it. I attract more of it, because love is an attraction. When you're in love, you attract things to you. You're attracted to someone. So it's about creating that, right? So it's the same thing with your vocation, with work, with whatever you do. It's about finding the love in something, and also knowing what you don't necessarily like or enjoy as well, and being and honoring yourself too. Like, I don't like spending time here, and that's what the human journey is, and that the individual journey, because for me, consciousness is all of us. It's expressing itself through each individual, and so it loves everything. So I love podcasting. So me podcasting is consciousness exploring podcasting through me, and then you love psychology. I don't do psychology. You do psychology. So, but in some way, we're all doing it all together, because we're part of that greater collective. So I wanted to know what your answer to, if you have that answer, was like, well, how do people tap into their greatest potential, and how are you cultivating that within yourself and your clients? And I guess we can wrap it up with that last question.
I feel I've touched on it in ways of tapping into that part of us that is boundless and part of something bigger than the human body. And presence just keeps coming back as a key, as well as what you said with connecting to what you love, which is the play. And it's being careful with letting our minds take us to wanting an answer as to one thing that will help us be that, because really, when we come back to what we shared, we're here to learn about ourselves, to evolve.
So letting go.
So yeah, until we die, we have this time. We don't know how much time. But it's constant. It's that spiral. It's not linear as we may think, to do this, get this degree, then this job, as the normal society has conditioned us, which we've taken in our upbringing. So once you hit a wall, again, back to our design, we're going to find a new mountain to climb. So I don't feel there is.
But you don't think that there's like a pursuit in life that is a single mountain? Like, is that?
For me, the single mountain is collective, because we're not separate. So the collective is that growth. But I feel like what you're saying is the seed of the vision, like the blueprint that we're given, for those who may believe that, which I believe.
Yep.
As to our gifts, our astrology, gene keys, all of our different layers is part of sharing that gift and letting it be seen, like that blooming in the world. I used to think there was one way until I became a psychologist, because that was my vision for over 7 years. And then there was a death with that I needed to let go and surrender and realise I'm more than that. So I personally believe it's all of us remembering our divinity and also remembering we're fully human, which is Mary Magdalene's gospel. And I wouldn't say I'm a dedicated Catholic. I was brought up Catholic. However, without going too deep into that could be another podcast, the mainstream, the conditioning even around religion, that never aligned to me whenever I went to church with my nonna on special occasions. So zooming out of all that conditioning is the teachings from beautiful leaders, like Mary Magdalene being one, who was also stigmatized, and people know other stories about her. But her gospel is what really lit me up and changed the game for me in my path, was realizing we're fully human and fully divine. And fully divine is part of what we've been saying around spirit and play, and our limitless potential, that we have the ability to co-create our life. That is my belief. So tapping into yourself, back to reflection, back to sitting, back to undoing, back to emptying is part of that.
Because this is where I wanted to take it for a little bit, was you say, like, who do you think you are? You say coming back to self, like, who do you, so getting in touch with spirit and all this stuff, like, your perception of who you are, has that changed? And do you think that's, you know what I mean? Like, do you believe that you are just, you said you're more than who you are. So there's spirit, you are divine. You said humanly divine. So are you saying that you believe that there is a part of the divine in you, or you are divine? And
I believe we are all of light and energy and consciousness. So I don't see myself as being separate from the trees, from the animals, from the stars, from the planets, from the Milky Way and beyond. That's not separate from us. That is us. However, it's learning the expression of that in our unique containers, which we call our bodies. Yep. So realizing we're the entire ocean, as many people know, have heard that quote. For those that don't, it's realizing you are a drop in the ocean. But coming back to the heart being a compass as to leading us to express that in our own uniqueness, hence diversity is just so beautiful, given the different flowers, the different fruits. That's part of that evolution. If we're all the exact same, how boring. We wouldn't evolve, we'd die.
So coming back to the theme of evolution is I think what I've realized with people like yourself is that you've evolved who you think you are. So there's the biological version of you, right? So that's evolving through time, right? And that's here in the material world. But there's also the evolution of who you are spiritually. And so spiritually, we've also evolved too. And so it means that our perception of who we are and what we are is actually evolving as well. And that, as you said, requires a letting go, requires a death and a rebirth. It's like, well, I thought I was Anthony. Like, well, fuck, you're not. You're greater. You're greater than that. And so and I think what is at the core, the root cause of the Western culture and what's stopping it from expanding and combining and intertwining with the feminine, let's say, or it's the fear of death. It's afraid to let go of the material and the safe, because that's the father archetype, that's the masculine, it's security, it's safety. And so what I believe has to happen is actually a letting go and a shedding of that, not to realize that you aren't that, but you are that and more. And that's what I think is what has been asked of us right now, especially through COVID and through what's happening overseas and everything. It's that essence.
Yeah, and back to what we've touched on around that essence, it's coming back to earth, coming back to our fundamentals of humanness. We're an animal. We come back when we feel lost. Sit. When we're unsure, go be nature, be with yourself. And clarity comes when you strip out, when you empty. So when I meditate and my mind's busy, because of course it gets busy, and my normal strategies or rhythms of breaths and practices that I use aren't working as effectively, I'm not, being able to drop and empty. I literally tell myself empty your mind, and I imagine emptying myself. And that, to me, I've found at the moment, and I know that will evolve as I evolve, is that part of just like opening and letting life move through you, which is that high vibration versus feeling like you need to lift everything, carry everything, because that is so draining and
it only sees half the picture.
Yeah, and it's really masculine. The feminine is that trust, it's that letting go. It's like you said, the letting go piece.
Yeah.
And the faith, which essentially is faith in yourself. So when you start from within and move your way out, what you're working on within reflects in your outer reality.
Yeah, it's cultivating like that trust and relationship with the universe as it is you, and therefore trusting the universe as the universe is you and it's going to take care of you, sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's experience with that. Like,
Yeah.
give it a go. When I was in year 9 or 10, I had a dear friend who was suffering from severe depression, and she attempted to take her life a few times. That was so confronting as a teenager for me. And she offered a book that started, like, changed my whole perception, and I believe was the seed to my journey now as a psychologist and my interest in the deeper underlying meanings and fire within of issues, getting to the fire, treating the fire, as I said. But Louise Hay, her affirmations, creating a reality, I experimented. I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. You don't know until you try, right? For anyone. But when I say try, don't try one day and be like, oh, it didn't work. You've got to rewire neuroplasticity, consistency. It's 30 days, do it for 30 days and see every single day.
Yeah. So wrapping this up with the C, you've started something called Freedom C. And we've started something called Freedom C. My bad. But yeah, it feels like I'm interviewing you, so it feels like I have to we've started that. But how could, do you want to share a bit more about that, and what other ventures you're in, and where people can find you, and what you're up to now?
Yeah, I'd love to. And I'm glad you said we, because definitely the team and the juices of creativity coming together. So part of the letting go has been, I'll keep this high level, part of the letting go for me recently and this cycle I've been in is my identity and attachment to being a psychologist and being within guidelines and rules, which of course I follow in my awakened business with my clients. However, I had to detach part of myself from that when I'm not working as a psychologist, realizing that I'm more than a psychologist. Required some mourning, grieving, and it was really confronting and dark actually for some time after being trained for so many years in a specific discipline and it being my life, to then realize actually I'm more than this. So this is a beautiful example of what we just said about learning more of who you are, which is bigger than the labels we put on ourselves or our names or our families we come from. So part of that letting go came when high-ticket affiliate marketing dropped into my world, which before used to be a trigger. When I saw marketing, I would be like, oh my God, marketing. Until I started my own business, because I realized to be successful in my business, I need to get my word out there, which is through marketing. So I just let go. I trusted it. Came through a dear friend that I'd known for years. The signs were there. Again, part of that reflection strategy of noticing, not being so set in my ways to be like, no, being so in the masculine in the mind limits you because it needs certainty, it needs to know. And if we're forcing to know everything, we're limiting.
Love, by the way.
Which
isn't love.
Yeah.
Love is letting go.
Yeah. And the unknown, for all those who are in love and love someone, really, you don't know what's down in the future. Yeah, you've got to trust. Yeah, you've got to be present. You've got to enjoy those small moments because who knows? You don't need to know. And when we try to know everything, we lose our play. We lose the mystery of life and the magic. But coming back to what I was saying around my second business, that's opened a whole new avenue of myself, which I've been loving and thriving in, which is linked to my integrative psychology business because it is in the health industry as well, sharing the power of electrolyzed, reduced, ionized water, Kangen water. So through that, I've upskilled not only on the marketing forefront, but also as a leader and building a team of those who are also on a similar path of creating that freedom within themselves. So part of high-ticket affiliate marketing, my main pain point as an entrepreneur was not having the freedom to travel when I wanted and still get paid. I was confronted by the fact my time was traded for money. Without me showing up to a session, I was not getting paid. And sitting with the shame and desire to want to earn money and build a grand life and experience what it's like to fly first class and to buy whatever I want, you know, tastefully.
Very spiritual.
Well, this is it.
No.
This is a whole other topic. Spirit isn't separate from material success. And I know there are a lot of unhappy, well, actually, I don't know of any, which I purposely put myself into rooms of millionaires who are heart-led, because that's me. And that's what I'm becoming more of. Desire put within me, my destiny. But there are people that are millionaires who aren't happy, who are miserable. So I feel we've been conditioned to believe, well, in my upbringing, wealth was linked to, greed and being a woman, that's a whole other topic. It's owning that, you want to make money and have an expensive life and express yourself as a woman, a boss.
I think equally, if not more for men in that area. I think there's a massive, there's a lot of pressure there for men to provide, because there's you have a wife, kids, family, there's I'm not going to say stigma. I think it's true. I think biologically, through evolution of time, right? It's wired in, it's through stories, it's through narrative, it's through DNA. Okay, that's shifting a little bit now, but now we're in a different time. It doesn't change the fact that that's what it was, and it needs to, there's still a lot of healing through that, for men in that area. So, a lot of pressure and the concept of that, because a lot of us grew up, only my mum, she worked as well, but for the first few years she didn't, and I think a lot of women in the same position. So your very, very early years of story is your dad going to work and stressing the F out and coming back and not having enough money and stress because he's trying to provide for you all and everything, and he's not present because he's trying to be there. And so there is a lot of pain and also a lot of empathy there that you can see. So it's and then also being a man, you're I'm gonna have to take over this. This is my you feel like you want to be responsible. You want to help the family. You want to help your dad. And anyways, that's my story at home, and I feel like a lot of guys probably went through the same thing. Yeah,
and to tie it back to what I was sharing with diving into a whole other part of business for me, which is total opposite to integrative psychology, took a lot of courage and a lot of inner work to undo past patterns that would have kept me stuck, would have kept me smaller. Yes, I would keep growing, I believe. However, now I've expanded myself. I've allowed in opportunities that are providing for me in the ways that really fill me up. The way I live my life is a dream. I'm already living my dream. It's the financial that is building, hence me taking the masculine steps to make it happen, because I used to be so much more in my feminine around creating, but I was also very in my masculine, so it's catching yourself where, you can limit yourself too. But back to your question around, what I'm doing and the Freedom Sea part of the second business launching. I've been blessed to meet beautiful people like Anthony, and that's really what's brought us in together. I ran into Anthony at Orchard Street, which is a beautiful
place.
Yeah, with yummy cacao. There was just a hook there straight away. He was very curious about what I did, and we were just chatting, and then a month later we ran into each other again, and he asked me more about my second business, still curious about my first. Anyway, it led to us hanging out more personally with another beautiful soul, which then a seed of a community that we're longing to build, because we realize part of our pain points have been lack of community and belonging. So
spiritpreneurs.
Yeah, spiritpreneurs, but calling it the Freedom Sea, being a vehicle to create freedom within our life and stepping into our limitless possibility by combining our skills together. So that will be launching in the new year, in-person events to start. So we'll share more details on my page. And in terms of my psychology, next year I'm planning to launch community events within that, specifically with women, and bringing women together in sacred circle for sharing and creating those bonds and connections, because that has also been missed, and that's coming back to our roots and our ancestors as women did when men went out to hunt. We'd gather, we'd sit, we'd hold each other and be there, and that's definitely what we need more of. So more details around the circles, the lineage of the rose, I'll be launching on my Instagram, so awakened_MBS, and also I'm offering integrative psychology one-to-one sessions in 2024 with longer duration to come, a deeper dive, I call it, because 50 minutes just feels like 5 minutes. So there will also be that opening in the new year, which is launched on my Instagram and on my website. So Anthony, you'll share that?
Yeah, I'll share that with you guys in the links in the podcast. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, Liv. We've flown, like you said, 15 minutes feels like 5 minutes. Feel like we could have gone for a long time. So it's been a pleasure having you on the Personal Evolution podcast, and I want to thank you guys all for listening. I hope this was helpful. Like, share, comments with some stuff below so we can kind of tailor this and shift this more towards what you guys need. So yeah.
Thanks so much for having me, Anthony. We've been talking about it for weeks, so it just fell into place today randomly, last minute, but I love it. So thank you all.
Squeezing right before the new year.
Yeah, that's it. Blessings, everyone.
Sweet, thanks.